You're listening to WKDW Radio 97.5 and KDWRadio.com, broadcasting from the Bishop West Real Estate Mobile Tower right here in absolutely overcast Northport, Florida. Well, the weather forecast today when I got up said rain right away, heavy rains at 8 o'clock. And so far, our precipitation is at 0. So, it's amazing that we got such a heavy downpour when Alexa has been pretty accurate up to this point on a lot of things, but maybe the rain in Northport just kind of skirted our issue a little bit. But as a reminder, as always, if we do start to get the heavy rain, remember, if you're on 75, oil and water don't mix. They make a great ice skating rink. If you're on 75 and we start getting some rain, it's the start of rainy season. We haven't had any rain for a while. Please, please, please remember that when that rain starts to come, and that first initial rain is always the biggie for making people go off the road. Take your time, slow down, and really just kind of cut it down to 75 today if it starts to downpour, and get home safe, and make sure everybody does too. Because when it does rain and you mix that oil from the roads together, I will tell you, you will hydroplane and you will go straight off the road, and Sarasota Memorial will be waiting to take great care of you. So just take your time, relax, and let's get home safe. But I've got a very special guest in the house, Vanessa Carisone. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing good. So we were just having the light conversation about.
I know we were chit chatting.
Yeah, we're just into the moment, and we don't get to do that very often, except on the show most cases. So don't get to see otherwise because you're working a lot. But
I know, right?
And I'm going 90 miles an hour the other direction. But with everything that's happening in Northport, do we have any hot agenda items out there?
We sure do. So we have a couple of meetings on April 4th. The first one is actually a workshop. And for those who aren't familiar with workshops, what it means is that you can't really take a vote. It's an item for discussion. So they'll have a lot of conversation. It starts at 9 a.m. But it is a very, very important subject. It is about mobility fees. And the mobility fees are to take the place of the current transportation impact fees. And so with that said, they are looking to fund all of the current and future projects of transportation costs within the city by utilizing this new fee. With that said, they're talking about increasing it at 50%. Some items might be less than 50%, areas for example, currently in our land use categories, we have 53 different land use categories, and they're talking about reducing it to 17 with the new mobility fee. And that kind of concerns me because I think that kind of leaves less flexibility for people to utilize. Like we talked earlier, there's going to be a huge increase in the cost of building thanks to the tree ordinance. I don't know if it's huge. I'm not going to say huge because it really depends. It's all flexible and it all depends on, your lot and how many trees are on it and what size trees, blah, blah, blah. But my point is that it's an additional increase to the cost of building, which then gets turned into passing on to the purchaser or the person, the investor, and so on and so forth. If the builder doesn't feel it, nor does anyone selling it. So now we're going to increase another possibly 40 to 50% in building anything because transportation impact fees pretty much affect anything that you're going to build in the city of Northport. So point of that is that, Commissioner, oh my gosh, Barbara, Commissioner Langdon. She had, I gotta say the first name in order to know the last name. And you know me, this weather and I do not get along real well. But she had said, I hate to see us just put the brakes on any type of, growth that we've been seeing over the last, 5 to 10 years, because this could really affect the city in a negative way, as far as growth. Now, I completely understand, that to utilize, it's something that was surprisingly asked in 2016, and it's taken this long for mobility fees to actually be discussed. So it's been a long time coming, but the problem is that we're kind of, I hate to say it, but it's a little too late, I just don't know how this is going to go over. I understand that we have to find a way to pay for all of this, and mobility fees is the way to do it because it gives you more flexibility. It's not so it's not put in a box where transportation impact fees are regulated by the state statute, and they tell you how you can actually pay for certain things. You can't pay for, say, upgrades to a current street. It has to be an increase in the capacity of that street, an additional street or an additional roadway. So transportation impact fees have specific regulations where mobility fees are different. You can use it for, say, sidewalks or multi-use paths or things like that. And so it's a way to lessen the burden on, say, road and drainage and other types of areas where the taxpayers have to pay for it on a regular basis. So I'm kind of iffy on that one. I wish it was in place, 4 years ago, because I think that it would be less painful. They're talking about increasing all at once, and I'm wondering, okay, one, can't you turn around and create a larger amount of categories to help balance it out? That's one. Mm-hmm. Two, why can't you do a phased-in process like we always do with other increases, including, even when we had to increase the fire district, phase it in. So there's got to be another way to implement the mobility fees, but not create such a burden.
I'm going to step back for a second, because the mobility fee itself is now going to be an additional fee.
It'll replace the transportation fee. But when you build something, you pay a transportation impact fee. If it's not commercial, if it's residential, you'll pay a Parks and Recs impact fee. You'll pay a general government impact fee, and all those impact fees go into a capital use. But again, the state has mandates on how you can specifically use those types of fees because you've collected it as an impact fee, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So instead of having impact fees, we create a mobility fee structure, which has less regulations from the state.
With you.
And in there, you can use it to add your sidewalks, to upgrade your streets instead of having to put new ones, to help with drainage issues that are flooding streets. There's a whole litany of things that you can use it for because it's about mobility, not just transportation.
Right.
So now we get this away. Transportation impacts fees go away.
Yep.
But when you're doing a side-to-side comparison, there will be an increase. What they're talking about is somewhere about 50% increase in what you're paying now. And again, I think that's a large increase because impact fees are not cheap in any way. I mean, transportation impact fees are not cheap in any way, shape, or form. Didn't they just raise them by 100% or 90%? I can't remember. So I don't know. I'm a little concerned about that one too. It's another one of those, they have a couple of different scenarios that they proposed at the last meeting. And hopefully at this workshop, we'll get some more clarification as to how they plan on doing this or implementing this, because it's going to take a while. You're going to need, not just stakeholder meetings. They claim they've had some, but I don't know how they could have. Most of this started in 2020, and we were dealing with COVID around then. So I think the whole stakeholder thing was a little difficult. And I'm not going to blame the, people who did it. I'm just saying it was a little difficult. But in the same token, I think there's going to have to be a huge notification to developers, to anyone that has projects in the city. There's going to have to be some sort of a phased-in approach as to saying, look, it'll be, it'll be implemented on, on X date with plenty of notification. So I don't think it's overnight. In other words, is what I'm trying to get at. It's not overnight that this is going to happen.
Well, with that being said, with everything that's out there, and that's being adjusted, part of the thing I see right now is, and I'm just not talking local. I'm talking everything right now is being impacted by a lot of the federal government ideas of how our government should tax and deplete our oil and costs, and it's everything's happening. I'm watching the churning of I want to say working class, and we are truly a blue collar working class city that supplies a lot of workers elsewhere.
Oh yeah,
we're already outpriced in the marketplace for workers. We're already outpriced higher than we've ever been on home pricing by itself, just as a standalone. We've got increase now on all kinds of foods. We've got, of course, gasoline is at all-time high because oil is at all-time high because we've decided that we're not going to be self-sufficient anymore. And I'll leave that mindset or lack of there to the powers that be, because you're talking about implementing into Northport another fee or another charge and an increase. So we're already outpricing our marketplace for working class, which granted, I don't know that even the chamber would fight me on that stance that we are really a working class environment here. And the chamber does a great job trying to get all of their information out to keep everybody supporting chamber members and chamber businesses. The problem I'm having with this whole thing is we kind of keep attacking the wallet, and nobody's talking in real regard to the impact that's all collectively. It's sort of like, hey, we see everybody doing it, so we're going to do it too. I'm kind of feeling that momentum jump in, and everybody's thinking, well, what's another tax increase? What's another adjustment over here? What's another adjustment over there?
Do you really think it's a matter of everybody's just jumping in, or is everybody taking advantage of the marketplace?
I think it's a combination.
In the state of Florida. Yeah, I think it's about, but when's it going to end? Because everybody knows that government is slow. So by the time any of this takes place, this big burst is going to be gone. And people don't understand that. Like, it's either you got to be on it. This is why it came up in 2016, is this should have been implemented by the time all those homes were being built and sold. And think of how much we could have gotten accomplished by now. It's just sickening to think of how slow things are in the city.
But you're going to implement that on the tail end of that growth and stagger potentially more growth, because I know the
absolutely.
The theory, I've spoken about this to umpteen people now. The theory behind, well, it's an increase, but people are going to buy it anyway. Okay. No, they won't just buy it anyway. If we're not the only ones layering this right now, or talking about layering this,
Exactly.
we're talking a collective group of people in our governments, whether it's city, state, and federal. Everybody's implementing their own layers of increases right now, and nobody is thinking, how is this affecting the consumer? I sell to blue collar workers every day, or I don't. I don't right now, because guess what? We're not affordable living in Northport right now.
Not at all.
Unless you want a 1969 house that you're going to be paying top dollar for insurance on versus having a quality home.
And let's be realistic, even that's not affordable. I mean, when you're asking $1,500 for a 900 square foot home, what are you going to do? How are you even going to afford that?
I've got people right now that are paying 1,500 square foot for a bedroom. So and they're happy to have a roof over their head, but they're struggling because they have nowhere to go. I just dealt with someone else, and if you don't think all these all the fees and taxes and everything else, and everyone, I everyone needs to be very concerned, because the apartments right now, I know for a fact,
they're astronomical.
They were $1,900 a month last year. They're going to $2,500 a month. It's a $500 increase, and we're talking as a city to continue to increase. Our federal government is increasing. So the goal here, I guess, is to burst the bubble. And the more that you put pressure on the bubble, you're going to burst it. And it's coming. I don't know when. I don't know how. If people stay steady at it, we've got a lot of cash flow coming into the Florida market still from other states. So I don't know that we're going to have the economic impact that, say, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Michigan. They're still moving product up there. They're still selling, but those areas that are high taxes or higher taxes than us, they're going to feel the economic impact more than we are. And the federal government's doing the same thing to them, and their local government is trying to survive this crazy storm that we have out here since COVID.
And I can imagine that the northern states are probably in way worse condition than us in the state of Florida, because they're losing the people. I mean, they're just picking up and leaving, and I don't care if I'm selling my house; it'll sit there empty. I'm sick of this place. I don't want to wear a mask, is basically what it all boils down to. It's all great, but a couple of things I've learned in my age is nothing is sustainable unless it is consistent and done strategically and slowly. You can't go into things either half-heartedly or half-educated and go 800 miles an hour and think that it's going to be sustainable, nor think that it's going to be worthy. So when we talk about these big hits to, let's just say, the economy, it's not sustainable, right? No. Now let's talk about the flip side, these charges. When you go hitting things on this 50% increase, it's not sustainable. Something's going to give. For every action, there's a reaction. We've talked about this a million times. And there will be a reaction to this. I hope to God Commissioner White is correct when she says the maximum amount to each lot that would be felt for the tree ordinance is about $2,000. Okay, fine. I think people can handle the $2,000. But if it's more, now we're talking about more hits, and you just keep hitting, and what happens? People start fighting back and dropping. That's what's going to happen.
She gave that example, but what I would have liked to have seen out of any of our city commissioners is go get a real lot. Give an example of a real lot in Northport. It's not like we don't have one. We have many. Go pick one that has trees on it and give us an example of what you voted for. Not what we're talking about. I'm so happy with our commissioners on many levels, and I'm so kind of disappointed that there's just seems to be this lack of structure on the opposing side. And the opposing side is, how much is it going to cost to clear the lot? What are all the fees that per tree? And go take an example so that we know what we're actually talking about, because it's hypothetical, and I'm not a fan of a vote being cast on hypothetical. We had that decades ago with Nancy Pelosi and healthcare, when she said, we don't know what's in it, we haven't read it, but let's vote for it, let's get it in, and we'll see what happens. Okay.
Yeah, that's the best, right?
We see what happens, and healthcare took a major hit. So the reaction to that implementation of a non-reading and voting for something you didn't know what the counter action was that, we have it, but I just heard today, if you don't have your Medicare Advantage adjusted, it's flipping. So you better figure it out. So how many of those programs have now flipped out? So that's just an example of what happens with healthcare when you don't read it, and we're still trying to figure it out. Give me an example of a lot in Northport. We have 65% growth build out potential. Pick one of those 65% or 10 of them and come up with an average cost. And we have an arborist that works for the city of Northport that you could have said, hey, go pick 10 lots randomly throughout the city, and let's come up with the average cost to clear a lot if we're going to just clear it. And that would have been a more structured conversation. I could handle it. The hypothetical of I don't know, and you have to have an arborist go look. Well, okay, how do you handle your business if you have to have that? These fees, if we don't analyze, if we vote the same way, I'm going to be on the same page as you with, I have a little bit of fear in the counter action. And I know they know this. I know they're thinking about all these things on what's going to happen if we do this. I'm not questioning that. But have a verbal answer.
Have some sort of understanding of what you actually voted for.
It's not it's almost like we're approaching this as consumer beware and find it out on your own. And I don't like that. And I don't like to talk about commissioners in that regard, but I don't think it's here. I think it's countrywide right now where things are happening at such a brisk change because of the influx of growth, especially here. That we're.
I don't know. Is it that, or is it that people who serve in politics anymore are just sick and tired of being beaten down? And basically, if there is a large contingency in front of them that are for it, then they are not willing to stand out and step up. They'll rather just sit down and roll over.
I'm not really sure. You're listening to WKDW Radio 97.5 and KDWRadio.com. You're having an open conversation with Vanessa Carisone, a former city commissioner of Northport. She served how many years? 12?
12? Yeah.
You said that, right?
12 years.
Said that like, holy crap, I didn't realize that. But,
I know, I had to think about it. I'm like, oh my God, 12 years. Yeah, 12 years.
I've never seen you answer that with a question mark, and that kind of felt like a 12?
Well, it's kind of hard because it's like most of my adult life, I was an elected official, that's kind of weird.
Well,
who else does that?
Yeah, nobody. Well, there are people. Here's the thing: if you're with your history, and if you could envision where we were at 12 years ago, would you see the same decisions being made if you were on council?
Well, I mean, there may be the same decisions, but I was always one to ask a lot of questions and wasn't always willing to just go with the flow, I guess. I kind of I was I had more of a futuristic look into things, kind of like this mobility study and what's it going to look like in 10 years type deal. Um, but I can't necessarily say that my one vote would make a difference in this particular, makeup. It all depends on the commission themselves.
So I'm not going this with the one vote thing, because I heard what you said, and I've been part of a presentation to the commission. I was honored enough to be able to do that and had a great experience doing it. And I know you remember that. So I really don't go to commission meetings and pound the bully pulpit and do all these things that other people do. But I know that there are groups of people out there that really are impassioned about certain things, and I'll call it like it is. Some are over the top and some are not. But with that being said, I almost feel like right now we're in this little time warp of, if we vote for it, nobody's paying attention.
I don't think the commission ever feels that way, honestly.
Yeah, I might not have been talking commission.
Yeah, not our commission, anyways. Yeah. I think that I think that
out there.
Yeah, I think our particular city commission is very aware that there's people that are watching and listening, and they'll, one way or another, they're going to hear it. So I don't, in general, maybe that's how it is in other locations, but I think, the tree ordinance, just the tree ordinance alone, has been discussed for over 20 years. I mean, think about it. I was on the commission the first time in 2002, and we redid that entire tree ordinance. It went on and on and on for months and months and months, and we had all stakeholders involved. So the idea was to have everyone on all sides of the aisle to actually be involved in the creation of this tree ordinance, and they didn't do that this time. This time they did it among themselves, and so that's kind of okay. They have the right to, so I'm not gonna, I'm not dissing anyone for it, but the whole idea of this was to open up more mitigation factors to prevent commercial properties from having to actually just clear cut, because it was the less expensive way to actually, get a development taken care of. And it all started with West Villages, and Marty Black had come to myself and said, did you know that we wanted to keep the trees in one of the projects? I can't remember what it was. And he's like, but we were going to take them and we're going to bring them to the park across the street, because they were doing a park over on River Road. And because the city did not have a way to transport a mitigation unit, from trees taken and trees placed, he couldn't do it. He had to just pay outright. And then they went and replanted trees anyways. But the point is that, the whole idea, the whole premise of reviewing the tree ordinance was to find ways to open it up to lessen the financial burden on folks who want to do the right thing. And I think what happened is that over the years of discussion, it just kind of became bastardized. It just kind of got out of control. We talked about trying to make it as easy as Sarasota counties, and this is as close as they could get it. But in Sarasota County, you can cut your own tree down in the backyard. You don't need a permit. You don't have to call. And guess what? You will have to call now. I got a dear friend of mine that lives in our neighborhood. We're very close to our neighbors, the whole lot. And they said that they had cut a tree down because he's building a garden now. And so he had cut the tree down, and when he had the arborist come out and look at it, because he still did the right thing, he went and had the permit done, all my years. And he said that the inspector's like, listen, lucky you did it now, because next month you would have had to pay a lot of money to cut this tree down. This is my house. This is my property. If I want that pine tree done and out of my backyard, because I'm sick and tired of it ruining my roof and ruining my car and my paint, who are you to tell me I can't cut it down? I will never understand that. Never. And I don't care how big or how small it is. Don't tell me what I can do. I would have absolutely been a hell no on that one. So to be honest with you, I don't think they understand that. I really don't.
And therein lies my problem. That is a problem, because we now have, and I hope they're going to amend that.
I hope so.
I know they're working on these things, but how many landowners, and I did ask this question, how many landowners are aware of the change? I'd have to say very few, because it only takes 6,000 to become a commissioner.
Yeah, it is unlikely that anyone really knows it yet. I mean, listen, let's face it, nobody really knew that there were regulations to begin with prior to this change. I mean, people would come in all the time and say, do I have to pull a permit just to clear the underbrush, or do I have to pull a permit to cut down my dead tree? And I'd be like, okay, well, the code says that you actually have to have the arborist come look at it, but you don't have to have a permit pulled. I mean, that's the way they had done it, and it was asinine to me, I think, but that's the way they did it.
So how do we, as a city, how do we, other than I hate this word, how do we wake them up and make them realize that it's our freaking yard? It's not.
I'm not sure.
It's not the city's tree. It's not their property. And this is where I have a problem. I know we want to keep trees. I understand that. I understand the logic behind it. Where I'm confused is they now have taken the right away of the owner of the property and said, nope, you can't do that unless you pay. And I just call it a tax, because that's all it is tree tax. So if I want to clear my lot, I've got to pay a tree tax to have it removed. Otherwise, you're going to tell me when and what time and how I can cut it down, because I'm going to have a permit. If I leave the tree, I've got to get a permit to come and have the tree removed after my house is built so I can put a pool in my backyard. All these things that are there, they need to really, I'm just shocked. I'm still shocked.
Well, and get this, if you want to go and let's just say you want to put a fence up in your backyard, and now you have to get an engineer to come or some sort of special engineer to make sure it's not going to create some sort of drainage issue. Come on, people, really? They overdo things so dramatically and just create such BS. I mean, I know someone who wanted to put a shed up, and I say shed, it was a 20 by 20. It was a large scale shed, but he's got 3 freaking lots. He's got over a half acre. And it was way far from a drainage ditch that they've yet to clean out in over 2.5, 3 years. It's huge difference between, where this water was, and it was definitely far away from the front road. And so, they turn around and tell this guy he's got to get an engineer to come in and draw the grading of the property to make sure that it's okay, and that. I'm like, you got to be kidding me, right? Because guess what? It doesn't say that in the freaking codes. Nowhere in the codes does it say for an accessory unit that you need a structure. Or I can't remember what they were called. See, my brain is just mush. It was a grade engineer, something like that, but it's basically for drainage.
So
But
if you're advising the community right now, if you had something to tell the community, because the word is not out. I promise you it's not out there. I know for a fact it's not on the street. Nobody's even talking about it. It's sort of like the people who know when there's a commission meeting, they know of the commission meeting because they go.
Right.
Our community is a working class community. Northport Forward is absolutely trying to get streamlined information out, trying to feed people information in a nonpartisan way that really bakes in the idea of here's what's happening. Catch on real quick by reading what we got. We're doing all the legwork for you so that you can, in an even keel, understand what's happening. The problem I have, and I have a lot of problems with this tree ordinance, is that you just stomped on the right of the property owner, and the property owner is unaware that they just got stomped on. And I've been told that it's not going to affect the price of property. And I'm just going to tell you that's not 100% accurate, because I do this for
I got a bridge to sell you too.
Well, I do, and honestly, I can't begin to tell you how false that statement is. I know that I used a comparison before on tortoises and their protected species. Well, it's $5,000 a tortoise to have them relocated now, post-COVID. Okay, because there's only one place you can take them, and the guy knows it, and he's making a mint. Okay.
Really?
Yep. So the really strange things about those tortoises is that you can actually leave them on your quarter-acre lot and work around them, sort of like the tree thing. Okay. And I get that. You can mediate by keeping some trees in a corner. I get it. I legitimately walked or sold a house and walked through the yard of this pine tree that they saved. And the root ball of a pine tree is not large. It's not massive. But when they did the yard, when they put the septic and stuff in, that tree is not gonna weather the storm very well. Okay. And anybody, Alice White, including me, I don't want trees just to die because we went in and cleared a lot the wrong way. And we had to do it because we had to put the septic tank in. We live in a different environment right now that when you're putting a house into Northport, the odds of you having a septic tank in your front yard and a pool in your backyard are extremely high. When you put the house in between, you've chewed up most of your yard. And if you have one of the older trees, you're paying to have it removed. So and I get it. I get what they're attempting to do. I'm a little confused by it all because I still don't have a rate of a true rate of what's going to happen. And I hope that some of these meetings that they're doing, they're going to figure that out. Like I said, if they would go out and pick 10 lots and have the arborist go out and put some numbers on a paper and say, we did 10 lots. We did our own little survey. And based on these 10 lots in Northport, your average cost for clearing the lot is going to be this. I along with 1,500 other realtors and, 65% of the non-built out properties in Northport now have something to gauge what their property decrease is going to be, because most of those types of things are negotiated. Tortoises are negotiated. Scrub jays, if they really want that property, which is really difficult, but if they really want that property, it can be mitigated. Trees are now part of the mitigation. When you add those three mitigations up, okay, it almost always at a really high clip is negotiated down on the price. Well, when you tell me there's no property worth being attacked. I'm sorry. You don't have enough data to prove me otherwise, when I can tell you that everything else that I mediate costs the seller of that property. Almost always the price goes down. I just want an answer that is firm. And I know they're making some adjustments. I know they're going at this. I know they're having meetings, and I have been told they're going to amend some things. Good luck with. When I see things go into government, the changes are not. They're not the same. When you implement something in, now you're kind of walking back your decision. None of them want to walk back that they may be wrong for voting that in the style and the form. I'm just saying the form. I'm not saying that we didn't need something, but did we vote for something before we knew what the counterbalance was?
Well, I think that I unlike other large government positions, I think the city is willing to take a step back and say, okay, look, we made a mistake. Let's roll this back and let's try. Sure. I think that they will. I think that they're going to understand that there are some repercussions. And in fact, I think that was part of when they voted the first time, was they knew there would be some repercussions, that if they may need to adjust it and amend it through the time frame. So this just is kind of one of those special meetings that was kind of expected. It really was, because it was very difficult to understand that tree ordinance. And I would not, I wouldn't even be surprised if there's not more. Once this thing becomes implemented and there's actual examples to be had and stories to be told, I have a funny feeling that will change some opinions a lot.
And in your 12 years, did that ever happen when you were on council?
Uncomfortable?
Not where you had to kind of to some things that you voted in.
Oh God, yeah. I can't tell you how many times I've turned around and said, "Oh man, that was such a bad mistake," or I would put my hand up and say, "Yeah, that was me. I did that." Yeah.
Well, the beauty in this conversation is we're not picking on anybody, but we're really just trying to educate people that there are some things out there that you need to get educated on, and you need to stay focused on what's happening, because whether it's local, and I really like local government than I do federal, but whether it's local or state or federal government, everything that people are voting on right now, it just feels like everything is going after the pocketbook.
Yes. And again, I still think it's a matter of those who believe that this is the prime time to hit people. I think it's almost like they feel like it's 2006 again, where everybody had this, this large pocket of expendable cash, and that's not the case. And I just don't get it. Maybe it's that whole, they're not really in touch with reality, or what their community is involved in, or maybe they're in their own circles. Let's think about that on an actual social level. COVID kind of retrained people to stay in their circles. So by staying in your circle, it doesn't allow you to see what's outside your circle. So if you think that doesn't affect someone's decision making, need I say more?
It does. It's really, COVID changed us. I think, across the country, it's made massive changes in what's going on and how people think. And you implement that in with the vaccine, and then you implement that in with the mandate of the vaccine. And I gave this example to a friend the other day because I agree that the vaccine it's worked for me, good with that. But I also I'm on the side of they should have never mandated it. And the only reason that I feel that way, and this was my example that I gave, is that Joe Biden didn't want to build a wall down south, but he built a wall around everyone who was fighting against the vaccine instead of educating and handling this in a way that was, I think, would have been more American like. He handled it in the form that he thought was best. Now, I'm not saying that he's bad or good.
Would you call that Russian-esque? I call it the Russian-esque way.
Well, and listen, anytime that we mandate Americans, are you kidding me that you're not going to think there's going to be backlash?
I agree.
And I just think it was just a bad move. And bad 10 more times I would. Because you enabled the people that were fighting against it to have a cause.
Right.
And the cause was, you're not going to tell me what to do. And that's the way they think, is that government shouldn't be dictating that. Tough times call for tough measures sometimes. I get it. I've seen both sides of the fence, and I'm very easygoing because guess what? I got both shots. I'm not going to get the boosters. I've made up my mind already. No. You've got to get me more data first. Hopefully I'll have more than 10 years to live, so I won't feel the wrath of whatever they injected into me. But, you know, it's sort of like realizing that when people, and it comes right back down to reality, is that there is, for every action, there's a counter reaction.
That's right.
We have, because of COVID, people have picked sides. And the RNA are more powerful now than they ever have been before. And decisions, I think your example was right on the money, is that people they kind of locked in and locked tight to their small gatherings, and they're not really out and about listening to others anymore. They've already locked in, and they've built their wall. I mean, we got more walls being built today around people and their groups than ever before.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
It's going to take us a while to, I think, get to the realization that we're going to get hopefully back to somewhat normal. I think anytime that government takes power, it takes them a long time to release it. They just thrive on it. And they're chewing people up right now, left and right, and they're having such a good time doing it. I kind of feel bad for us for a little while, because I think we're going to be talking about the COVID effect for decades.
Oh, I agree. And I feel bad for the kids. That's who I feel bad for, because those are the ones who are going to have to deal with all this backlash. The rest of us are going to be gone, you know, for generations to come, because it's really there's probably effects that we'll never see. Some of these children that were stuck at home, you know, not having school. Some people who still to this day won't go to birthday parties because they're afraid they're going to get COVID, and it's been already kind of common knowledge that, you know, you're not going to get it by being outside in a park. You know, you got to kind of be exposed to someone who has it.
Right.
And, you know, I know people who wear masks thinking that they're wearing a mask to protect themselves. I have people that have, you know, say that I'm okay, I got my shot, don't worry about it. But that has nothing to do. You still can get it. Like, you can still pass it around, you know? And so I guess my point is that there's just so much out there, that so many different levels and different aspects, that this particular episode in history has really affected the human race. And I just don't know what the future's going to hold, because I think there is going to be a huge backlash from it. I think there is.
Well, I think we're kind of feeling it now. I really do. I think we're feeling a start of a backlash. And especially when it's even the relocation that we're talking about, and the growth that we're having here in Northport and anywhere in Florida for that fact, is that the backlash is, when you live north and it's midwinter and there's a pandemic, we're in our pools, we're in our backyard pools, and it's ironic that we assessed on the federal level that we shut parks and everything down, and that's exactly the opposite of what we should have done. But they're not correcting that either. They're not coming out and saying, "Listen, get outside, stay outside, get motivated, get yourself going again, get back to exercising outside." It's amazing that we've kind of taken a backdrop to that sort of information being talked about. And
don't you think it's kind of funny how our grandparents would say, get outside, get out in that sun. There's nothing better than going out, go to the beach, and then I think about it, I'm thinking, they just turned around and told everybody, no, don't do that.
Right.
I'll never understand it, but I can't say anything one way or another. I wasn't happy with the way the other, presidential side handled the whole situation either. So
no,
I can't really say much.
I agree with that, because I think that it was bumbled from the start, and I think it was bumbled from leadership years ago. For that fact, because we've kind of set ourselves up for this because we weren't paying attention, and there's something to be said for not paying attention on the federal level, state level, and local level, and if we do anything, is encourage people to get involved, encourage people to pay attention. I think that's what happened. So, we chewed up a whole 55-minute show already, and 1 minute left.
Real quick, there's also another meeting. The actual commission meeting is going to be at 2:00 on the 4th as well, which I don't know how they're going to do that, because the one meeting is at the workshop's at 9 a.m. They're going to need probably a whole day to discuss that. So,
right.
And then the 2:00 is the one where they're going to discuss the tree ordinance, and
that'll be a while.
Yeah, that's all I have is the tree ordinance on that one.
All right. Well,
that's it.
It's great having you on the show. I appreciate it. This is John Rawlings with Vanessa Carisone saying, have a great day, drive safe on the way home, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Talk to you soon.